All right. There we go. We're doing good. Oh, Greta, you know what? It occurs to me because when I'm saying hello to everybody, I'm going to go through the format. So if you want to jot down any numbers at that time when I go through things.
I got it. I got it.
Yeah, you're okay.
I don't want to be yelled at.
Okay.
Tell me, Joan, when you want me to come back on.
Oh, anytime is fine.
Okay.
So we just have 2 folks. Oh, no, we have 64.
Nice. Oh, that's good.
I know. Okay. Just like 1 second, then we'll get started. Okay, how about we start rolling here? Let's do it. Hi, everyone. Wish I could see you all. I'm Joan Donahue, President of Riverside's League of Women Voters. Thanks for everyone for joining us tonight for our mayoral forum and the great questions that you submitted. I hope we touch on everything of interest. It's quite clear what concerns are at the foremost of your minds. And so we'll get to those in 1 minute. Also, great thanks to our candidates joining us. Andy Melendrez, Patricia Dawson, thank you so much. Our timer tonight is Greta Koslint. She is chair of our league unit in Riverside County's southwest corner. She has a stopwatch in one hand and she has cards to count down the time for the candidates. Our forum tonight, our format, will begin with 2-minute opening statements from each candidate for community questions. Candidates have 1 minute to answer each question. The first candidate to answer the question has an option of a 30-second rebuttal. Then on to the next question with the speaking order reversed. We have a few questions that we felt deserved more time. So I'll call for 2 minutes before asking those questions, and then we'll forego the 30-second rebuttal. We'll wrap up with 1 minute closing statements from each candidate. For the speaking order, we're going to go with the way the candidates are listed on the ballot. So we'll begin our opening statements with Patricia Dawson. Patricia, go ahead.
Thank you, Joan, and thank you, Greta and Andy. Welcome, and thanks everybody for hosting us tonight. You know, I'm a Riverside native. I was born and raised in Riverside. My family's been here 70 years. I'm the youngest of 5 children. But the fact that I'm a Riverside native and been around so long doesn't entitle me or qualify me to assume the role of mayor, right? But my experience and my record of results does position me well to assume the role and be successful at it. I have worked at all levels of government. I know how government works, and I know how to get things done. I've worked at the state level, I've worked at the regional, city, and also the federal level. And in each position, I was able to make a difference and have a leadership position. I spent 5 years on the City of Riverside Planning Commission. My last as chairman, a single woman on a 9-member commission. I was a gubernatorial appointee to the Board of Behavioral Sciences under Schwarzenegger and Brown, where I oversaw 100,000 mental health professionals and increased mental health services in the state. I was on the Riverside Unified School District Board of Trustees, where I oversaw an increase in graduation rates from 81% to 97%, the highest in the county. And in my private business, I have brought in over $185 million into our region in projects. So, you know, Riverside is no longer a small town. We're not a sleepy little citrus town, and it's no longer adequate to just have experience that's rooted here. To be players on the federal stage, to be players on the state stage and the world stage, we need somebody with the acumen and the track record and the relationships to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, when you're ready.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Joan, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for your invitation to participate in this forum once again. I've had the opportunity to participate in forums of yours for the past, 14 years now, 4 of them. They've been truly exciting. I really do appreciate the input and the comments and the questions that are made at every one of these forums. As many individuals know, my family's been here in Riverside since 1910, and we've really seen the evolution of Riverside for over 100 years. It's been closer to 110 years. I grew up and attended Casablanca Elementary School, graduated from Poly, attended Riverside City College, went to UCR. I only attended there 1 quarter. I was one of those kids that had to work, and I left UCR, finished off my bachelor's and my master's degree at night at Cal State San Bernardino in sociology and educational counseling. I've worked gang intervention from 1975 to 1976 and 1977, worked at the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, working with individuals with disabilities, severe disabilities, amputees, paraplegics, quadriplegics, head traumas, a variety of other orthopedic injuries. And our job was to help them get back to work, find the training, find the independent living skills, and get them back to work. In 1982, I left to begin my own business, Innovative Vocational Rehabilitation Services. And we grew to up to 20 employees and 4 separate offices, 3 full-time offices and 1 satellite office. And I continued that until 2004 when the industry changed. But I stayed in the industry as an expert witness and continue to do that today. I was elected in 2006 as a city council member and have been elected 4 times. It's been the most exciting time for me serving as a city council member. And we have seen dynamic changes in our city through the Riverside Renaissance. We've also seen challenges going through the worst recession that this nation has ever seen. But we've come out of that strong and steady and stable. And we continue to do so. There's a lot of opportunity here in the city of Riverside, plenty of room to grow, and we will continue to do so in the future.
Thanks. Thank you, Andy. So Patricia, we'll give you a few more seconds here as we get going, okay? Greta, because Andy went, what, about 5 or 10 seconds over there? All righty, so let's move on to questions. And we'll start with Patricia. I should tell everybody who's tuned in. We're going to do questions in blocks. We got several questions about the same topic, so we decided to take the best that we could, put them together as best we could, and address them in sections. So we're going to start with public safety, a lot of emphasis on policing. And so we will start with Patricia. What is your position regarding a change in scope of our police department's responsibilities, which might include refunding money to support more mental health and social services programs?
I absolutely
Patricia.
believe we should do that. I think the riots, the demonstrations, the unrest we've seen across the country has really told us that we need to have a change, right? The primary role of a mayor, though, is to ensure the safety and security of our city and our citizens. So that's important. We need to make sure our citizens are safe. That's not to mean that we can't do things differently. And what we've seen happening across the country allows us to, gives us an opportunity, I see. There's opportunity in that kind of adversity where we can look to reprogram money. I don't think our police officers want to be in the business of mental health services. I don't think they want to be in the business of social services. I also think we could be looking at different models, like the Cahoots model in Oregon, which is a community policing model that I think would be very well received here in Riverside and would work very well. So yes, we have a lot of opportunities.
Andy?
Thank you for the question. As a city council member in 2006, we saw the transition. We were under consent decree at that time when I came on, and we knew the investments that needed to be made in the new way of policing, the community cops, the community-oriented policing. And sometimes those changes are difficult, and they're challenging, and they're also expensive to employ, requiring new technology, new type of training. Those types of things is a very complex field. Officers go through an awful lot of training. When we talk about defunding or refunding the police department, I believe that we're going into a new era, and we need to continue to provide that public safety, utilizing new skills, but at the same time incorporating them with other services. We've already started doing some of that at the city when we hired the most recent two nurses that are going to work along with our police department. So that transition has already started incrementally, and we'll continue broadening that option. One last thing, hiring the right police chief is important.
Andy, I'm sorry.
I'm not seeing the monitor here with the time, Joan.
Oh, you're not?
No, I'm not. I was thinking a flash was going to come up, but I don't see one here.
Okay, we'll have to, Greta, do you have like a bell?
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. You can't see Greta because you should see all four panelists.
Okay, I can't see Greta. So let me go ahead. Let me try something different.
Perhaps change to gallery view.
Yeah, I'm looking for that on my phone. I don't see that. Sorry about that.
Anybody can run in there and help you? Well, I'll you know what? I'll just, when Andy's up, when it gets to 30 seconds, I will just say 30 seconds. How's that, Andy?
Okay, that's fine. Or just hold up your finger really quick.
As you can see me.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what then. I'll watch Greta and I'll do 1, 30.
Right.
0. Okay. So Patricia, did you want a 30-second rebuttal to that? Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah,
question?
I just wanted to mention we're into the process of doing that right now in the school district at Riverside Unified School District. We employ police officers to help on our campuses, SROs, and we'll be taking up this item at our next board meeting in October to investigate the role of these SROs and how do we keep our students safe going forward.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Okay, our next question, and we start with Andy for this one.
Yes.
Many of us never expected to be so well acquainted with the mayors of Portland or Minneapolis. Just in case, how will you advise the police chief regarding training and procedures for police interactions and large protests? Okay,
Andy? Would you repeat the question one more time, Joan? You broke up a little bit on my side.
It has to do basically with the fact that there have been large protests. There's been trouble associated with some of them. It seems like the face then that you always see speaking about it is the mayor of that city. Mm-hmm. So our question then is, how will you advise the police chief regarding training and procedures for police interaction and large protests?
Well, obviously, one of the very first thing that we do is engagement. We do that now with our current police department. And we reach out and try to engage with as many individuals as possible. One of the things that I think is important that we do is have and reach that community-oriented police to the highest level, to our chief. And our chief has really been the one that has wanted to engage and looks for every opportunity to engage. As a mayor, what we do is work together to make sure that the community is engaged with us. Large protests are a right of all individuals. And I believe that those protests should be offered, and the opportunity, peaceful protests, separate from what we see in the looters and the vandalism. So, I think we need to expand our community-oriented policing.
Great, thank you. Patricia?
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a great police department in Riverside. I think we're in some ways farther ahead than a lot of other cities of our size. However, that doesn't mean we can't improve. And one of the things I think we need to do, and there was recent legislation that was passed about this as well, is have mandatory use of force training. And we need to be able to have all of our police officers know when to have that be a last resort. They also need to work with our surrounding law enforcement agencies, such as our sheriff's office, to make sure that they have a plan in place where they can respect the peaceful protesters. But then if people are doing things that are illegal, we definitely need to make sure we keep our citizens safe.
Great. Andy, did you want a 30-second rebuttal to that?
Yes, very quickly. I'll just touch on two things. One is police training. We offer a lot of police training. One of the things that we also do is mental health training, so that police department or police men and women are able to identify who is on drugs and who is off their medication. The other is that communications with other police departments and sheriffs is something that we have in common. We put that into place about 5 years ago. So all the departments, our sheriffs, our Riverside City Police, and I believe it's Corona, already work on the same wavelength and are able to communicate with each other. Thank you, Joan.
Sure. All righty. Let's see. So our next question, we start with Patricia. Much has been written that police unions are the #1 obstacle to reform. What should the role of police unions be, given the widespread interest in reform?
So I think this is one of those situations where the citizens and the discourse and the conversation is set up around a series of false choices. You either are pro-union police and they're controlling everything, or you're anti and they're getting in the way of everything. When of course the reality is somewhere down the middle. And we have an opportunity right now to go down that middle path, and our police unions can help us there. They don't want to be in the position of doing mental health intervention. They don't want to be in the position of giving social services. These are ways we can negotiate with unions and have them get us what we would like to have on the other side of the ticket, right? So to say that they're blocking it and they can't, that we can't get something done because of that, I think is just, it's a falsehood.
Okay. Andy?
Our community, obviously, as most people who know me, is extremely important, and that engagement is vitally important to the success of our city. A police union and the members of the police union are people also. They're also members of our community. And one of the things that we think is important, that they continue that community engagement and broaden it so that we are more fully engaged with our community on both sides. One of the things that we sometimes see are dividing lines that may not exist here, but may exist in other areas. And one of the things that police unions do, oh, Joan, you're falling away. Okay, one of the things that that police unions do here is that they make it a point to do backpack giveaways, distributions, engaging with our community. There's never a stop to trying to improve. We want to improve, continue to improve. And I think our department is doing a very good job, and we want to be able to continue and broaden that.
Terrific. Thank you. All righty, the next question, and we'll start with Andy. As the county seat, many detainees are released into downtown Riverside 24/7. Some of them are being released from county jail, while others are being bussed in from state correctional facilities for local release. Once released, they are not provided an opportunity to make contact with family or friends to arrange for pickup. As mayor, what will you do to alleviate this situation and ensure our downtown area is safe?
Well, there are many things that we can do. Well, one of the things that we do as a mayor is we engage and continue our discussions with our local sheriffs. They're in charge of our jail, but also arrange an MOU with our paroles office so that we know who's coming, how we can engage with the individuals, connect with services and support services rather than letting them loose. We don't have an MOU with our paroles division or the probation division that places individuals in our community. And that's one thing that I think is vitally important for us to be able to connect. We also need to further our engagement, not only with our local sheriff, but our surrounding community cities who employ sheriffs as their police department. That's vitally important if we're going to create this network and be able to provide the services or the support or provide the types of direction that these individuals that are being released need.
Thank you. Patricia?
So anything dealing with homeless has to involve a regional approach, much like the approach that I've taken on the Santa Ana River watershed, where I built a coalition of 17 cities and 3 counties. And the end result was to end up with $65 million for funding for projects in our watershed. Bringing people together like that in our surrounding cities will enable us to have those kinds of conversations with our surrounding cities. I will say we need to focus on better prevention and exit strategies and work with the members of our community that can help us do that, build on what we have existing. We can work with our nonprofits like the Fair Housing Council to keep people in their homes so they don't end up chronically homeless. We can work with Victory Outreach. It's our faith community who has a job training program for formerly incarcerated individuals. And we can work with our courts to develop more diversion programs so people can earn their way out of addiction and into housing.
Okay, thank you. Andy, did you want 30 seconds here?
Yeah, I did, because I don't think I touched enough on the homeless part. I really focused in on the parolees. But yes, a regional approach is vitally important with many of our joint powers, our surrounding cities. It needs to be a comprehensive approach. And when we take this approach comprehensively and regionally, you're going to see a reduction of homeless on our streets here in the city of Riverside, because now other cities are being responsible for providing services in their own community, whether it be through a church, a nonprofit, through a local city, in combination with the county. All those agencies are extremely important in providing the services.
Okay, thanks. Actually, we have some other questions coming up that will deal more with homelessness.
Okay.
So those are coming up soon. But right now we're going to move on to fiscal issues. We're going to give you 2 minutes for this question. Okay, Greta, 2 minutes. Back in June 2019, the Press Enterprise reported that the city was facing insolvency due largely to pension obligations. This was before the pandemic, and current estimates that cities could lose some $360 billion in revenue. How do we manage our pension obligation, the decrease in tax revenue, and keep Riverside solvent? We'll start with you, Patricia.
Well, we do the same thing that I've employed at Riverside Unified School District, where we've been fiscally responsible. We have, we have a larger workforce than the city. We have almost twice as many employees there. And we are the 3rd largest employer in the county. We also have the same type of pension obligation as the city. And we've managed to make very disciplined fiscal decisions that have let us have a balanced budget, as well as solve our pension obligation and secure that. We did that by 3 steps, which you could employ at the city as well. One is to refinance your existing debt, so what you've borrowed doesn't cost so much. Secondly, assemble a budget stabilization committee that's comprised of labor, businesses, and citizens, so we can identify priorities for cutting back and making sure we are fully funding them. And thirdly, we need to identify new sources of revenue. We are not going to be able to cut our way out of this. We are going to have to attract new investment into the city and use different types of mechanisms than we have in the past. This is a new problem. We need new solutions. So we need to be looking at investing in our infrastructure through something like a tax increment finance district, which will allow us to leverage our opportunity zone and attract inside investment and outside investment, and have new businesses come in and make our city flourish and thrive.
Thank you. Okay, Andy, 2 minutes, please.
Yes, I want to make one thing clear. We're not
Yes.
going bankrupt. We're not going bankrupt. We are not. We have a strong 20% reserve. We are meeting our financial obligations. And the way we dealt with the pension obligation was we pulled a pension obligation bond. And we'll continue. It's not the first time we've done this. It happened prior to me coming onto the council as well. And we've been able to manage that for the past 14 years. We'll be able to manage this one. There have been adjustments that have been made over at our retirement fund. I can't think of the name right now, but our CalPERS, where they put a cap on maximum retirement amounts that a retiree can receive. They've also increased the participation, and then they've also extended the retirement age. What we've been able to do with our budget is we have a balanced budget now, $280 million. We have the Measure Z. The press enterprise has not talked about bankruptcy since 2019. We're not going into bankruptcy, and we've got the pension obligation managed. We now need to continue managing our revenue and our expenses over the next 10 to 15 years. We're looking at it right now on a quarterly basis to make sure that we're able to meet our obligations given our coronavirus matter. But at this point, I feel comfortable with the way we're moving. We've always got to watch our nickels and dimes. I've been doing this now for 15 years. They said this about the 2008, which was a much worse recession. We never saw the bottom. We didn't know where the bottom was, but we were able to come out of that fairly strong. And in 2018-19, great reserves and a good solid financial situation.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
All right, we have 2 questions now regarding assistance for residents and assistance for businesses. Residents first. Given that the COVID-19 pandemic is still going strong, what health, financial, and employment resources do you recommend or you would like to add to assist residents? And we'll start with Andy. We lost Andy.
I did. I am so sorry, but I'm working on my phone, and my phone, somebody wants to call me. So sorry about that.
Okay. You want me to repeat the question?
I think the question was, with the COVID-19, what kind of support would we be able to provide residents during this period of time? Okay.
Yeah, then we'll move on to business. So we wanted to focus on assistance. Let's see. The questioner asked about health, financial, and employment resources.
Health, financial, and employment. Yeah, with services. We don't have a public health department. That is really with the county. In terms of providing the services for public health, obviously partnering with the county would be extremely important. Providing support, obviously some of the things that we're doing right now with our public utilities and providing no cutoff of public utilities for those that are not able to pay are extremely important. The other again, we did the rent matter. which, we're not able to evict individuals for a specific period of time. So I think some of those are some of the preliminary things that we can do. Expansion of maybe making sure that everybody wears a mask. We want to make sure that everybody keeps each other safe so that we don't load up all the hospital rooms, which has not happened, thank heaven. And we have been every council meeting keep a close eye to make sure that we are healthy moving forward. People are not dying from the coronavirus, but at the same time following the mandates.
Okay, thank you. All righty.
You're welcome.
Patricia?
I think I would build on many of the things that Councilmember Melendrez said regarding rental assistance, but I would also add to that about, having some sort of shared pool or fund that people could use where we're not harming our landlords and our landowners. It's great to put a moratorium on somebody having to pay the rent, but the person who owns the mortgage still has to pay the mortgage often. So I think it would be a really good solution to work with some of our nonprofit partners as well as the state and our CARES Act funding to establish a pool of rental assistance where people can have access to that. I think also in terms of jobs, the data suggests that fully 60% of the jobs that we're losing in the COVID crisis are not coming back, the types of industries and the businesses that are here. We need to look to the future. We can't do things the old way. We can't look backwards. We need to be looking to have more jobs and industries that are present in the 21st century.
Great. Andy, 30 seconds.
Yeah, just very, very quickly. We work very closely with the county with the temporary base residential assistance program that supplements individuals that have lost their jobs and retraining or finding new jobs. Obviously, we work with the county on that very, very closely. When individuals are homeless, we put in as many resources as we can to help them, whether it be housing resources, whether it be utility resources, connecting them with the nonprofits that are providing food services, food assistance program, at the same time helping them look for work. So,
sorry. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so we move on to the next one. Again, given the dire financial predictions due to the pandemic, what resources do you recommend or would you like to add to assist local businesses? We'll start with Patricia.
We really need to provide businesses access to capital outside of our area. We need to bring more capital in so they can connect. But one of the biggest things that a city can do and a government can do is get out of businesses' way as much as possible, right? Cut red tape, cut permitting fees, allow them to be creative with the types of businesses that they're doing. One of the things we saw happen was being able to put our restaurants outside, and that was a very quick response to that. So we need to be creative, nimble, resourceful, and be able to allow businesses to do what they do best, and that's to be creative on their own merits and come up with the ideas that they have. But we just need to be able to support them.
Okay, thank you. Andy?
Yeah, just to summarize some of the things that we have done. One of them is that the community development block grants, we put aside $1.8 million for small business. We also partnered with the county with a very similar grant for small business. And then we have our CARES Act, which I believe it was $3.2 million in CARES Act money to support the small businesses. That was in addition to whatever the Small Business Administration was able to provide those small businesses. There were deferrals of payments and a variety of other things that SBA provided to those small businesses. In terms of stability, obviously ongoing connection with our Small Business Administration. The city partners with the county as well in regards to the career development or the Small Business Development Center, which are extremely important to our city. In terms of small businesses, really offering them more opportunity by waiving some of the business tax fees that maybe they fell behind on. Again, the utilities that we would be able to assist them in. And okay, Thank you, Joan.
It's difficult for you. You can't see the signs, I know.
Right.
Okay, but Patricia, 30 more seconds for you.
Sure. I mean, I will say, you know, as a school board member, when I first came on, I noticed that we had fully 75% of our kids were not going on to college. And I thought, what the heck? Why aren't they, you know, what are we offering them? So we launched career technical education training programs, and we matched what our employers needed in the area to the training that we were giving our students. And that's got to be a priority for the city, is to look at workforce development that provides a skilled labor pool for the businesses that need them here so they can grow.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go back to something you touched on it a little bit. I believe both of you did in the earlier question about resources for residents, but we feel this is really important. So we're going to take another shot at it. Job losses due to the pandemic is intensifying our state's housing crisis. Moratoriums on evictions or rent relief programs can only sustain people for so long. How can the city help keep people in their homes long term? And we'll start with you, Andy.
Thank you for that question. And it is actually one that we started working on about 2 months ago, but it had to do specifically with our affordable housing. Long-term, obviously, you know, if we could work with the federal government, Fannie Mae, Fannie Mac, to allow some flexibility in their mortgages to some of those that already own the homes or purchase them, would be one. The other is, how do we get more affordable housing on the market? We generally get anywhere between $6 million to $8 million of home funds, possibly talking to banks to see how we might be able to invest that money and create more seed money or more of that gap funding for some of these affordable housing units. Also, when they're able to get these affordable housing, gap funding, it qualifies them for credits, tax credits at the state level, which really makes the housing affordable. The other thing that we do not do, and I think it's important, that we need to look at our public utilities. Many times affordable housing complexes pay $500,000 to $1 million of connection fees, possibly waiving those or diminishing those a little bit so that they can qualify for those tax credits. Complex issue. It's tough to do it in 1 minute.
Patricia.
Well, we can agree on that. Yeah. I do think, you know, the more we can keep people in their homes, it feeds into the other issue we were discussing, which was homelessness, right? If someone's out and the longer they're out, the more they become chronically homeless. So it's incumbent on us to work with the partners that we have here in the city. Fair Housing Council, very strong, very robust. They can help us keep people in their homes by working with them, funding them. But we also need to bring more affordable housing into our area. And we need to work with our Building Industry Association. We need to look at ways they can get more affordable housing to market through either waiving fees or waiving permits or expediting permits. This is where my time on the Planning Commission comes in handy, is I think to be able to know what it takes to get stuff to market. I think also working with our nonprofits like National Core and Renaissance, who do affordable housing units embedded within market rate housing, and they do it with federal and state grants. All very good solutions.
Thank you. And you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, you know, I want to bring up a special situation just so they're aware. Obviously, UCR is not offering classes this year. Very few students. Many of the students signed leases. And working with those landlords has been extremely difficult. What we're finding is that finding a way to maybe adjust those leases so that they're more flexible and offer the students an opportunity to stay in their homes. We can do the same thing with the homeowners or the renters. We already have the rental temporary based housing for the renters in the area. I think we could continue that with the county and also the funds that we received.
All righty. Our next question is from the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters California is co-author of Proposition 15 on the November ballot. It will create a split roll property tax assessment. Commercial property will be assessed at market value. Residential property remains taxed at the purchase price. Proponents estimate the city of Riverside could collect an additional $11 million annually from this property tax adjustment. Do you support Proposition 15? Why or why not? And we'll start with Patricia.
So this is one of those things I think is a really divisive issue, and I find it difficult to answer as mayor or as a candidate for mayor, because I think you have no control over it as a city official, right? This is something that's being put to the people. The people get to decide. I have not taken a position on the proposition because I think the people are the ultimate arbiters of it. It's equivocal. It remains to be seen how much money will be generated from it. It's equivocal how much it will harm Prop 13 homeowners. There's on both sides of the issue. So I find it very difficult to, in a forum like this, discuss a position on it, because I just think it's somewhat divisive. And I love League of Women Voters, and I get it. And I know that they want to put these questions out there, but this is the type of stuff that I think is difficult for a local person to be answering.
Andy, do you have a response for us?
Yeah, that is a really, really good proposition. Sometimes propositions don't go over well. I think sometimes timing is a real issue. With this proposition, I certainly understand the needs of the schools for more money. They are struggling. The one thing that I think the timing for us being in COVID-19 and some of the struggles that many of our families are really a challenge. I think the state legislature can come up with a better option that's more equitable for all individuals. So in this case, it would be difficult for me to support that at this particular time, but it needs to be modified to help. It's so important that we have that additional income. It creates additional jobs and revenues. We understand that, but we have to write a finer line on that. So I think it's important that we look at proposition. I like it to a certain point, but then, it really is difficult to decide. I at this point, I would tend to say yes, but I have real difficulty saying yes because of some of the challenges for some of the smaller business homeowners, property owners, excuse me.
Let's move on. We'll move on to a 2-minute question and to a few questions about the environment. It was at least 107 today on September 30th in Riverside, California. Our state has been on fire and the threats persist in our region. What role can our city play in addressing the climate crisis and promoting green initiatives? And we'll start with Andy.
Well, I hope I planted the seed on that. Obviously, we just got a $31.2 million grant from the Strategic Growth Council, which minimizes the carbon blueprint especially in low-income communities. The other thing that we passed was the VRMA, Vehicle Miles Traveled, which really encourages walkable, bikeable communities. And one of the things that, there are so many other things that we can do with solar, also alternative forms of energy, elevating the importance of notifying our community when the air quality is bad. We're not doing that right now. We really we need to notify them when the air quality is bad, but also make them aware that temperatures are rising and they have been rising for many, many years. And we need to have a hard talk at the council level with the mayor about global warming. How are we going to work our public utilities and making sure that we're able to meet the demands of the longer summers? And our peaker plans are running really on a regular basis, but I think it's a whole educational program that is going to have to be comprehensive and letting the community know where we're at.
Okay, thank you. Patricia, you have 2 minutes.
Can you ask the question again, Joan? I don't think I understood what you said.
We just started out by how warm it was today, and here it is almost October, and we're threatened by fires, it seems like, weekly. So what role can our city play in addressing the climate crisis and in promoting green initiatives?
Okay, thank you. Now I understand. So I'm an environmental scientist, and I have worked in this space my entire professional career. I have worked to further open space and get people out of their cars and on bikes and on trails to reduce carbon footprint in an actual way. And I've actually made a difference in that. I think what we need to do as a city, though, we were at one time, we had, when Ron Leverage was mayor, we were the Emerald City, and we have launched recently a sustainability plan within the city and kind of re-energized that. There's so many things we can go down the list to do, right? One is to, connect more renewable energy within the city, have better renewable energy goals, try to become independent off the grid. I know this sounds like a crazy thing, but planting more trees and green spaces actually makes us a cool island in the middle of an urban sea. We also need to plan for jobs for the future, right? People are going to be disenfranchised. They'll be moving on. We're going to be left with an entirely new economy. And I think what we need to do in our city is to brand our city as a clean and green tech hub. We have emissions research going on here. We have a university. We have California Air Resources Board. And we can have opportunities to invest and create new jobs to talk about climate change.
Okay, great, thank you. And we'll start this next question for Patricia, and I think Andy touched on it just a little bit, but let's get a little more of your thoughts. What specific regional solutions need to be employed to improve our air quality? And we'll start with Patricia.
One thing I think is to get vehicles off the road. And that means to create jobs in our city so that people live where they work and they're not driving elsewhere. That's just a big thing that kind of underpins everything. The other thing, as I mentioned before, is having more trees and green spaces. That is essentially our green belt within the city is sort of the lungs of the city. They help us breathe better air quality. And we need to do more to get, I mentioned this before, this is very similar to the past question, is we need to have more opportunities to get off the grid, to be energy independent, and be able to reduce the carbon that's being put into the air, and actually look at potentially trading carbon tax credits for some of the activities that we have here in the city now.
Thank you. Andy, your thoughts on improving air quality?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think our Eastside community with that $31 million grant has planted the seed, because it does exactly the things that we need to do. It plants more trees, creates more green area, open space, provides better quality bike lanes, walkable communities, connectivity with public transportation and housing. It encourages energy efficiencies, water efficiencies. It encourages walkability from one location to another. That is the focus of that $31.2 million grant. And I think the city of Riverside can benefit from the model that we're going to be installing in our Eastside community with that strategic growth grant. I think we're a step ahead of everybody else in the city, and I think we'll continue to be, and I will be able to continue to do that as mayor.
Great. Patricia, did you want 30 more seconds?
Just very quickly, I'm glad to see that we're doing that. I hope it's not too little too late. We do need to have, talk about our built environment. Our built environment actually makes us unhealthy, makes us not only have higher obesity rates and poorer health outcomes among our children, but we need to get more of our built environment to be walk and biking friendly. And that's what I'd like to see more of. And hopefully, having worked with the Urban Strategic Growth Council on other grants throughout the region, we'll be able to do more of that here in Riverside.
Hey, thank you. Our next question, and we start with Andy. Do you support the Riverside Transmission Reliability Project, which would create a second connection to the state's electric grid with overhead transmission lines? If you don't support it, what is your recommendation?
Well, I was part of this in 2006 when we started this a long time ago. Oh, okay, we're part of this when we started 2000. And the issues of undergrounding or overhead were not really a real issue at that time that I recall. In 2000, I think it was 2013, 2014, we started an EIR. And that time, we moved forward. And then in 2008, we did an EIR overhead and what would it would take to do something underground. And they found that it created more of a disruption underground. But again, you know, that's an opinion. I believe that this is something that our community needs to have more input on. At this point, we've already gotten to Jurupa Valley. It's moving on to Riverside, and I think more community engagement needs to occur, and we need to hear more from our community members before we make a final decision on that, and look for possible alternatives.
Okay, Patricia?
The transmission line, you know, we need connectivity, we need it, but is this the right project for that? And I think because it was so poorly rolled out and the lead on the environmental documentation and the environmental studies took so long and was so poorly implemented, we are now left with very little options on where that line can go and what we can do. Had it been planned well from the beginning, and there had been community engagement and a robust discussion regionally with the city surrounding it, I think we would have more opportunities now. We do have newer technologies. We can go back to the drawing board a little bit and see what we can do, but unfortunately, we've had a lot of options taken off the table because of poor planning.
Thank you. Andy, would you like 30 seconds to respond?
Yeah, I just want to I think it's important to clarify that this transmission project is a Edison project. They're the lead agency on it. And again, you know, when a community engagement was important, especially those that were going to be impacted, I think it was the responsibility of the community or the council members at that time to have engaged the community and had more input. And I think we still have time for that. There's been a lot of testimony in regards to that. So it's not a done deal. And again, as we move along, there are adjustments that are made. We've seen some adjustments made in Jurupa Valley. Now, Jurupa Valley may not underground theirs because they still have to give up easements. Okay. All right, Joan, gosh.
Okay, let's move on. We'll move on to a 2-minute question.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
As we move on to a few questions about social issues. City Council passed a resolution identifying racism as a public health crisis. What does that mean to you? And what specific actions should the city take to address this crisis? We'll begin with Patricia.
We just passed a similar resolution at the school district. And really, the upshot of it is that we just recognize that there are institutional barriers to racism, institutional barriers to success. Racism is built into the fabric of our society, and it allows us to take actions to address those and fix them. I'm glad to see the city of Riverside is incorporating anti-racist into their strategic planning. We've done that at the school district as well. We've invested $500,000 into an equity and inclusion plan. And in fact, we've hired an assistant superintendent to oversee that program, and it's the first of its kind in school districts throughout the state. So we've seen a lot of success with that because, you know, it's not enough just to say that you're increasing diversity. Anti-racism actually addresses the structural problems that have led to that lack of diversity. When I first came on the board, I saw a disparity between our Black students' college preparation classes. They were not taking them in the same amount that our other students were. We looked at why. There were some solutions that we actually came up with. And today, over the past 9 years, their college preparation coursework completion has risen 160% because of that, which is commensurate with their other students. So it's absolutely possible to address structural barriers, but it has to be intentional. And I think as mayor, what I would love to do is start an office of diversity and inclusion to implement some of these anti-racist strategies and hire somebody just like we did within the school district so we could see benefits as we did there too.
Thank you. Andy? It's 2 minutes too, Andy.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, it's such an important topic, and I'm glad it's up on the table for discussion. I mean, we've seen inequities over the years, and we continue to see those. You know, it's important that discussions occur. firmer understanding of what it means, what racism really means, and how it affects communities, how it emotionally affects communities, and really prevents them from moving forward. This is a topic that I think really requires in-depth discussion, and it also requires a fuller understanding of what this means. The city of Riverside is a very forward-thinking city, and I think by putting together a plan, and we're in the process of doing that, that will be coming to my committee in the governmental affairs. It's called the Inclusiveness Committee now. And, we're going to be discussing our plan on how we're going to be moving forward with this. What we've done as our preliminary step right now is we've expanded the Day of Inclusion to be a week of inclusion, offering more alternative programming, different cultures, a better understanding of each other. It's so important to our community. Obviously, growing up in a time here in Riverside, before the civil liberties, and watching the civil liberties movement, and being a benefactor of affirmative action. I was one of those growing up during that time period. Have seen a lot of improvements, but we also see that there is more work that needs to be done, especially when we become a more and more diverse community. So I think the direction we've taken as a city has been exceptionally brave of many of the council members. We'll continue to work and put that on the table for discussion, and have a fair exchange of ideas.
Great, thank you. All right, something we touched on. It is well known that homelessness is a regional problem. What needs to be done specifically to address homelessness from a regional perspective? And we'll start with Andy.
Well, first of all, as mayor, you need to pick up the phone and call the surrounding cities to let them know that it's important that we work on a regional basis, bringing all the agencies together, various departments within the city, many of the joint powers authorities, working together with the county, and looking at examples that maybe other areas have done, so we can utilize some of those best practices to work on a regional basis. One of the things that we're finding is that many times cities don't have, or they have minimal services, and we need to help them engage the homeless, work with them, so that they will be able to help the homeless in their own area. We have a lot of experience in doing that, and that's something we can share with the surrounding cities. Meeting quarterly as a region, extremely important on how we're going to address the problem. Obviously, we need a good balance of services, participation of all churches, a variety of other nonprofits to make this a success.
Patricia.
Thank you. So I've been working in this space for some time with my work on the St. Anna River, as well as multiple species plan. WRCOG does have regional councils that are working on this kind of thing. And I think Councilmember Melendrez could benefit from attending some of those. We need to be able to bring the cities together. However, what each city does depends on what we're trying to solve, right? We know our homeless population is not a monolithic population. We have folks struggling with addiction, folks struggling with mental health issues, folks struggling with physical disabilities. So, and we also have those who are coming into our city to avail themselves of services, and they have very little exit strategies to leave. We also have individuals that are not able to help themselves. So in any kind of regional strategy, or statewide strategy for that matter, you need to invoke the various levels of government and determine what each one can provide to give you a solution to the issue that you're dealing with.
Thank you. Andy, would you like 30 seconds?
No, I think when we handle these things on a regional basis, obviously it's got to take a full cooperation, and we need to include the county on this. WRCOG is one of them. Marsh Joint Powers could be another. The Santa Ana Watershed Project could be the other. We need to take this on comprehensively, and I think together we can reduce the impacts of the homeless here in our city of Riverside.
Great, thank you. One more homeless question, and this, gosh, we've been having these forever, and this same question comes up every time when you talk about homelessness. Inevitably, someone asks, what plans do you support to deal with homeless people who continue to refuse services? but are still causing a public nuisance to business and residences. And we'll start with Patricia.
Thanks, Joan. Across the city, I talk to people who are dealing with this, and it's not fair to have businesses assume the problems with this stuff, right? They bear the burden of this, and this is something that they're dealing with. However, the people that are generally refusing services are those who fall into two categories. One is that they're generally potentially either out of incarceration or doing some illegal things. And the other is that they're mentally ill. And I have been working with Senator Roth's office as well as Professor Jerry Maguire at the UCR School of Psychiatry at the Department of Medicine to develop some ways of compelling individuals to accept services, to empower families who are not able to get their family members into treatment and help in ways that they know are necessary. So this is one of those, again, solutions that you have to look at all different players and the resources that they bring to the table.
Thank you. Andy, 1 minute.
Yeah, the chronically homeless is what we know them as, are probably some of the more difficult ones to deal with. And the question is, how much money do we want to spend on the chronically homeless? We have a lot of services now that maybe they do, maybe they don't want to participate in, but the service has got to be immediate, and you got to have a location to have them go to. One of the things that I heard from many of the even chronically homeless, because I have my office in downtown Riverside, is that they don't want to go to the homeless shelter because of the large encampment that was there at one point. Hopefully now that that's gone, they would be much more open to going there. But in terms of working with the chronically homeless, there's a reason for it. Multiple drugs, alcohol, depression, drugs, family issues, abuse issues. It takes a lot of work. What they're looking for is a little tender, loving care, somebody that will help them and provide some direction for them and know somebody that cares. Again, it's an extremely difficult group to work with, and it'll be a continual problem.
Thank you. Patricia, 30 more seconds.
Sure. I guess I don't consider it a problem so much as a challenge. I don't like to, call people problems. I think folks who are experiencing homelessness are troubled, and they are troubled for a number of reasons. And as I said, the solutions that we have to address those challenges have to be thoughtful and comprehensive. And in fact, I have a 3-tiered plan that I've developed that's a regional plan that I am ready to implement on day 1 as mayor.
Great, thank you. Okay, Andy.
Yes.
And wait, I need to check in with, Greta, how are you? Greta, you good? Okay, 2 more questions, Greta, okay? And then we'll go to closing statements. Are you good with that? Okay, just making sure Greta's still with us. All right, Andy. Yep. I can't see her, she's behind those cards. Okay, here we go. Riverside neighborhood leaders have been advocating for a community engagement program for years. Please describe your ideal program to increase neighborhood community engagement. 1 minute, Andy.
Oh, wow. That is really a good question. Obviously, you probably know that when I first started, I created 12 neighborhood groups in our East Side community. And regarding engagement and letting them know that City Hall was at their front door. The challenge you have with community engagement sometimes is that once the interest level disappears, it's really hard to keep it going. And I know Mary Leverage had a plan, but never really quite developed, and it fell apart. The idea here is probably take the core groups that are currently operating in our city and grow those groups to broaden our community engagement throughout our city. The individuals with the RRR, Dana, and various others are exceptional examples of good leadership and hardworking community groups. And I think in working with the Riverside Neighborhood Partnership and those groups, as well as other groups, we can make this grow and develop and craft a plan together, one that these neighborhoods will know will work for them and benefit their neighborhoods.
Great. Patricia?
I am so excited about this topic because we have such a great resource in place with our Riverside Neighborhood Partnership. And I think you know who runs that, Mrs. Donahue. But it's very active in that. What I want to do when I get into office is start in the first 90 days, conduct the big tent tour of the 26 neighborhoods that we have. And I want to have a series of listening sessions because we have a very uneven sort of flourishing of these neighborhoods. And some of them do very well and are very active, and others, you know, they kind of struggle a little bit. So what I think would be fantastic is to have a goal of having each individual neighborhood have its own version of a downtown within its individual neighborhood. And around that downtown is a community that coalesces around, you know, a unique identity for that neighborhood. And then we can cross across neighborhoods and share ideas and best practices. So I'm very excited about the prospect of that. I think that we can only go up that way.
Thank you. Andy, 30 seconds.
Just very quickly, I happen to be the council member assigned to the Riverside Neighborhood Partnership, and the transition that we've made over the past year and a half has been just outstanding with the leadership and the chair of that group. The development and the creation has always come from neighborhoods, engaging, having them come up with the ideas on what is going to benefit their neighborhood. Each neighborhood is unique. It has a different set of needs, a different set of ideas, and incorporating technology is going to be a wonderful, wonderful way to expand those opportunities.
Okay, thank you. All righty, our last question, and we'll start with Patricia. As mayor, how will you work to bridge the relationship and trust between city staff, the city council, and the mayor's office? In other words, how will you build an effective mayor's office?
This is about shared governance, and I've done it. It's easy. I did it in the president's office of the school board when I was there, when we hired a new superintendent and we were going through some really rough waters. I think the things that you need to do, it's a pretty simple formula. You need to respect each other's opinions. You need to validate those opinions, even if you may not agree with them. And you need to make sure that you have a set of shared common goals. If you don't have those common goals and you're not working together, you will never be unified. And we have a lot of big problems that the city is facing right now, but our best days are ahead of us. And despite what we see in the media about folks being divided, we can always come together when we have a common goal and we are marching in lockstep. I think it's a fairly used formula that we have used. So, and I think the biggest part of that, assume good intentions on the part of everybody.
Andy, 1 minute.
Yeah, you know, partnerships are so important. Having a business now for 38 years, but also having at 1.3 separate offices and many employees that operated those offices. As a business owner, the partnerships were so important. Being partners with the city council members, being partners with our city staff, being partners with our communities. One of the things that I know and that I've experienced is that once you get community leaders, the electeds and the community together, working together, you can reach above any goal imaginable. Establishing those partnerships amongst everyone is important, and really being able to sit down and talk, explain ideas more thoroughly, being able to see what each council member's direction are in their thoughts and what the community thinks about them. That's the way you move ahead. That's the way you get stronger. Obviously, my community engagement in all parts of Ward 2 has been consistent over the past 14, almost 15 years now. It'll continue to be as mayor.
Thank you.
Not bad.
Patricia, you have 30 seconds. You were perfect.
Yeah.
I left off with
Patricia, you had 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry.
No, she has 30 seconds.
I see it. Greta's got it.
Okay.
I left off with a comment about assuming good intentions about people. I think this is something we see all the time. You may not like the message somebody is giving, but when you get, you know, it comes down to the human intention. When you get down to what they're really concerned about or worried about, it's all about asking the right questions, right? And the questions, when you ask them, is to assume that the other person is coming from a good place. And I think this is something that we all benefit from in our community when we do that.
Great, thank you. So we're ready to move on to our closing statements. Let's see, we began with Patricia, so we'll begin closing statements with Andy. And 1 minute, Andy.
All right. First of all, thank you so much for having me tonight. This is really an exciting time for me. You know, when I look back at my life and growing up in Casablanca, and I think, who would have ever thought a young man from Casablanca would have the opportunity to be mayor of this city? That is really exciting for me. Over the past 14, nearly 15 years, we've seen the best good time, economic times in Riverside. We've also seen some very challenging times, and my experience has helped us work through this. We have instituted the Riverside Renaissance, which gave Riverside a terrific bounce and made it what it is today, a growing, prosperous city, one of the largest cities in the state of California. As mayor, I will continue that rich historic culture, but also the progress.
Terrific, thank you.
I thought you were cutting me off there, Joan.
No, you thought I was? No, you had more time.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We're good.
Oh, okay. Patricia, 1 minute.
Thanks. Well, you know, I'm really humbled, very humbled and honored to have received a broad cross-section of endorsements across ideological boundaries. Republicans, Democrats, businesses, labor unions. You know, I've got Mayor Rusty Bailey, former Mayor Ron Loveridge, Congressman Lou Correa, who's a member of the Latino Legislative Caucus. I've got Supervisor Chuck Washington, my own board members, Kathy Alvey, Brent Lee. But what is more meaningful to me is the hundreds of people that have gone to my website and signed up and endorsed. Because I know they care about our city's future from a human place and an individual place. And we care about our children and the future of our children. And we really need to be doing things in a forward-thinking way. And I hope that I can earn your trust as mayor. And I really would like to encourage you to vote for Patricia on November 3rd. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And now, one of the reasons that I really miss the fellowship of everybody being in the same venue together when we have a candidate forum, and it's the part where we say thank you to the candidates and let's have a big round of applause, and there's all kinds of yeah thunderous applause. So we can't hear it, but trust me, I know it's out there. You are appreciated. Thank you so much. I just want to thank again everyone who joined us tonight. Ballots for the and the county voter guides are on their way. Voter guides have all the information that you need for your voting options. They will have the voting centers and the drop box locations and times for early voting. You'll find everything in there. But for more information on this election, more about the candidates, the ballot measures, we encourage you to visit our League of Women Voters California site. It's called Voters Edge. It's one-stop shopping for nonpartisan voter education. And we ask you to join us next Wednesday when we will have our forum for the RUSD Board of Trustee candidates. Again, great thanks to everyone. Thank you, Greta. Thank you, candidates. And thanks to everybody who tuned in with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.